welcome to another episode of Life in the Military Spouses Edition. We are excited for this one as I think it's prevalent to both of our lives, Ash, as we go through transitions ourselves. And I said last week how I would, the concept that I think of this whole topic that we're going to talk about of successful transitions is I want us to look at it as I want you to be able to surf the wave of transition instead of just getting pummeled by it, instead of just continuing to get knocked down by that wave and get sucked into the undertow and just spit out by it. How do we make that wave and turbulence of transitions, of any transition of any kind, as successful as we can so that we can ride the wave instead of getting just taken over by the wave? And that's the only way I can explain this, is that metaphor of riding the wave versus getting taken by it, because transitions can be that way. They can feel very much so like that moment. And as both of us are going through transitions right now, you, the transition of leaving the military and retiring, me is the transition of job transitions and possibly a move on the horizon. As we get closer and closer to that moment, we continue to have to feel that transitional change coming forward. We can see it, we feel it, we know it's there. So I feel like this is that one of a really kind of like a how-to or our best advice, more so than anything, because every transition is going to be different. But I know that you and I both have some things that we kind of carry with us from one transition to the next that has helped us be able to be successful in them. How do you feel about that?
I agree. I do feel like it might be more of a how-to. But the first thing that comes to mind when, you're mentioning this, it goes back to the word flexibility. Mm. And in my experience, I've had both where in say a move or a deployment or a reintegration back with my husband coming home, like that, if I was more flexible in the changes and being more, like I said, oh my gosh, my dogs are gonna be playing. Being more flexible, then that transition period was a little bit more easier. Now, I did have other times, like coming back to the States from Germany, where I wasn't as flexible. And so I had a harder transition. I don't know if it was my own doing for like even thinking about flexibility or not, but either way, that transition was really, really hard. It is hard. It is hard. So
that's a really good point. I think that's a really good point to think about, because as we go through change of any capacity, I mean, change of the transition of going from, I know for me, a big one was going from one kid to two. I know it sounds so mom-like to even say that, or going from 2 kids to 3 kids, or 3 to 4, or, I mean, you went from 3 to 5. Like you went from big, there's that sort of small thing. It doesn't seem like it should be anything, but it can change everything.
Yeah.
And by us coming in and we're like, okay, I want it to go this way. And sometimes it's not going to go the way that we want it to go. But are we willing to be flexible and kind of just go, okay, I'm going to control what I can control. The rest will just kind of have to ride it out, right? And we go through it. But your concept of flexibility is key, I really feel, because if we're not flexible, the rest won't work. Like no matter what tool you have in your belt, no matter what documents you have, no matter how much you plan, if you can't be flexible with it, it's not gonna, it's gonna feel like you're just dragging your feet and it's
Yeah.
all this dead weight that's unnecessary.
Especially us as spouses, because again, we are not we're just kind of going with the flow anyways, and we're following our service member. And so like in those moments in the military where you just they're telling you one thing and you just got to do it, you could you can make the choice to either fight it or you can be flexible with it.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, your service member has got to go or got to do whatever it is they're being told to do. And we don't have that luxury of having that choice of saying yes or no. So, it's just from my experience, you can you can fight it or you cannot. And not fighting it, honestly, even though it stinks, because a lot of times I didn't like what was happening, it just made it easier.
It does. I mean, well, not fighting it makes it easier, even though you want to fight it and you want to throw your own tantrum. Because I feel like that's where I know at least I am at sometimes where the transition, I was like, this is not, I don't want to do this. You know, I threw many a tantrum and then was like, hey, when I'm done with this, we're moving forward. We're going to become flexible. We're going to go. We're going to do. Maybe it's not my ideal. But something else that I have always used is this idea of, I mean, we've talked about it as our faith, is that maybe I don't want to be here, but there's a lesson for me to be here. There's a reason why I have to go this way or the other, right? And so understanding that maybe I don't want to do this, but this is part of the plan. I need to be here for a reason, right? There's something to take out of this. There's a reason I have to go this direction. I have a lesson to learn, a person to touch, and not in a weird way, but like there's a life to change. There's a something that's going to come out of this that's positive. And keeping that perspective on the transition has helped me also understand that, like, maybe I don't want to do it, but what's the bigger picture here? I have to think big picture. I can't think immediate moments of discomfort. And when I started taking that into perspective, I could look at each transition with a form of positivity and almost joy and excitement of like, okay, what's to come, right? It's that turning the book and looking at the next page and excitement, not fear, worry, and anxiety over it because I don't know what's coming. I'm looking at it with joy. Is that something that you kind of inadvertently maybe have looked at?
Yeah, I think so. I when you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like finding the silver lining in it all, you know? Like we didn't want to go to Germany, but yet we were like, okay, what's the silver lining? We get to go and try and travel and it's going to be so much cheaper. And of course, you guys know if you guys listen to any of the other podcasts, how that turned out for me because I went during COVID and we couldn't travel anyway. So yay. But it was the fact that in that transition time, we were trying to find those little positive plugs that were going to help us motivate us to see the good, not always the negative. And in I mean, you're right. Like going back to even having a baby, it's like, gosh, that the infancy stage is so hard. And I think a lot of mamas are just like surviving on coffee and Jesus.
Yes.
At least that's how I was. And granted, I drank coffee when I was nursing, so hey, don't follow my example. But my kids turned out okay. They just twitch every now and then, you know. So I'm just kidding. No, but it's just like every single transition, whatever life brings you, it's like, yeah, like finding those little positive plugs,
Yeah.
those the silver lining. So, um, I don't, the other thing that helps me when I was thinking about this and we were talking offline is honestly making lists, like something tangible that I can see, and it helps keep my mind focused on, okay, the what is the end goal of this? And I mean, it could be even just my daily tasks, like um that transition into a better routine for tomorrow. And I know last week we talked about setting yourself up for success, right? So um just like my lists help me keep me focused. So that to me really does help transition
Mhm.
into whatever it is.
Yeah. And I call it controlling my controllables. Because like it is truly, if I can stay organized and focused, I can conquer the overwhelm, right? Because when we do any sort of transition, whatever transition it might be, there's going to be a lot of different factors being thrown at you, and you're being told, okay, carry all these plates, and you don't know what's on the plate, you don't know what's going on with them, and you have no idea where to go with them, right? You're just sitting here with all this stuff and you're like, how do I even start? Where do I start? But if we can take the topic of last week of successfully planning for tomorrow and for today, if we can take that topic and look at as a transition, it doesn't have to go away just because we're transitioning. That's actually something that can truly keep our sanity through a transition, because it keeps us organized, it's going to keep us focused, it's going to be able to go, okay, I have done these important tasks so that I can conquer the move, or I can conquer the transition, or I can conquer this or that. I keep thinking of all the different times of moments of transition. Chris coming home, I was in so much overwhelm. It was the first time that I was being left home with two little ones by myself. I had two under the age of two, coming home to a husband that I had barely even seen for the last like year and a half. I didn't know what he was coming home to. Like, how was he going to come home? I knew what chaos I had created, but I didn't know anything. And so understanding that I can't control how he acts, I can't control how my toddler acts. Like, I couldn't control if she was going to be excited or just absolutely lose it. But what I could control was, did I have the house prepared? Did I pick up? If I wanted a welcome home sign or shirts or cuteness, did I have that planned? Did I have the right times on the calendars, all the things situated? Like, right, I can control only my controllables. I can't control her reaction. I can't control his reaction. And I sure can't control whether the command tells me where we're going. Like, I can't do any of that, right? But if I can feel better to know that the things that I can take care of are done, wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, because I know that was something else, and whether that's a big transition, but even just the transition of bringing a child home. Do you have all the paperwork? Did we get X, Y, and Z all marked off? And having those lists, having the paperwork, having the documentation. I mean, I don't know if it's a military thing or if it's Chris's construction thing, but it's a lot of the, like, he calls it the CYA. And he's like, just, I would rather you have paper documentation that overdoes it than underdoes it, because we'd rather have it all done. Like, write it out, have the paperwork, do it all, because then for a fact nothing can go wrong. Like, right, that's one of those controllable things that you're like, okay, I've got it all. And I know you brought your binder, and I have my I Love Me book, is what I call them. That has helped for a lot of the different transitions. I mean, everything from deployments to field rotations to moves. I mean, even bringing my kids home and having all of that. My kids know that even the transition of taking them from homeschooling to public school, it sounds ridiculous, but it had all of our information in it that we needed for the schools. I walked in with a big, fat, pink binder, and the school looked at me like I had lost it. They were like, what? And I was like, it has everybody's stuff. What stuff would you like? And I started like flipping pages, and she was like, this is organized yet chaos. And I was like, yes, welcome to my life. Organized chaos. Like, this is all I'm doing. I'm organizing the chaos. Like, and so that is, like, if I can give any tip, I think having that I Love Me book, having it all organized, whether it's in a binder or not, but organize what you can and control your controllables.
Yes, so you mentioned your binder and my binder, and so mine wasn't or isn't like everything for life, but mine was specific for our PCS to and from Germany. Now, going to Germany, there was, at least for me, I don't know for you because you went a few years prior, so I don't know if things had changed or not, but there was a lot of things that needed to get done
Mm-hmm.
before we had to go, and a lot of paperwork, a lot of things like paperwork we needed to like hold on to, things that needed to get turned in, and medical things, passports, vaccines, like all
Oh yeah.
all all of the things. And and so I started looking at this list going, holy moly, like how am I going to, it felt very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It was, the list was organized, that what Eric received from the military, it told you exactly what you needed to do, but it was just, I mean, you know how the military is, they just like, here, like they hand it all to you,
Yep.
and like there's, they just like, it's like word vomit or like a fire hose of information. And so I started going on YouTube and or online and like searching people about PCSing. And I found several where like you need to make a PCS binder. You need to make a PCS binder. And they show like in their videos they were showing, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And so I took that packet that Eric received and I broke it down into sections. I put it all in a binder, and then I was able to just check everything off in the little categories.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I had here, I'll just, I guess I'll show it to you. It's messy now, but my PCS binder, and then like each category had like a pocket
Mm-hmm.
style thing where, okay, this paperwork is for here. I have this that I need to turn in, and it's in this little folder, like
Yes.
all that stuff. And so that really did help the transition going into Germany be so smooth. Like I knew where everything was. I knew it, and on top of it, it helped Eric. It helped my husband because he knew where everything was. It was one less stressor,
Yes.
and it, like that thing, again, something tangible, like a
Mm-hmm.
list. This was something that we knew we had, like Stephanie's saying, we had control over. We knew if we kept it organized, we knew where everything was, all his orders, all his med records, all the kids' med records, because we had to turn those in, everything. And that helped so, so, so much. So if you guys are in the season of PCSing, especially overseas, I would highly suggest to start a PCS binder. There are many, many tutorials and many YouTube channels out there that do talk about it. That's where I found my inspiration. And you can kind of get more information that way. But that did help so much. Now, coming back stateside, we didn't need so many things. And then coming back because you're coming home, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just was different. You didn't need all the um like, okay, like information on housing or hotels or all that stuff, because I was coming into this house. I knew where I was coming. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just a little different. So I had some things, but not everything coming home.
And I did, so I got told about we call it our I Love Me book. And I was told about this, I think when Chris was he in basic or getting out of basic, getting told like he was moving to Germany, and he had talked to some some guys who are like, you're gonna need this. Like, tell your wife about this. Go get the binder. Go make this thing. It'll be a lifesaver. She will be less likely to want to kill you with it. And we went from basic and AIT straight to Germany. So we didn't get that. We didn't get the love of the in between. We got sent straight out. So I was my first anything big kind of a move was overseas. So this book became my literally like lifeline to sanity, because it did have everything. And I just started to add things as it happened. So I would add kids' birth certificates because then I knew this binder was coming with me internationally. Like I didn't ship it, it stayed in my carry on. Every time we did a move, so from Colorado to Chicago, from Germany to Colorado, it stayed on my personal belonging. Like it was with me. This massive binder, guys, it's a like 4-inch zippered binder. And it's bright pink, like you cannot miss it. And it was always this item that I always said, if anything goes wrong, that is the one thing you need to be able to grab because it will have anything and everything in it that we need. And it has everything from like, I think his DD 214's even in it, birth certificates, passports, social security cards, old orders, which we don't need them anymore. Like stuff that I was leaving hospitals with because in there at the time it was necessary. And I needed that documentation. I needed this stuff. I have a kid who is a dual citizen, so his birth certificate is like, you can't lose that. Like I cannot lose that child's birth certificate because it takes me 6 months minimum to get a new copy. And even then, it's not worth getting this birth certificate copy again. So it became everybody's go-to place. And it's funny because what started as just to get us to Germany started to grow, and it became where like, I mean, we even started putting stuff for like just basic Colorado moves, and you know, like when we were planning the U-Hauls and the trailers and the things, all that got put in there because we knew where it was. And then now when Chris was out and he would go to like start a job, they all wanted, you know, like everybody's paperwork and information. He walked right up to the binder, opened it up, grabbed the things he needed, and he knew that it had to go back in there. Like if you take something out, it better go right back in. Yes. I mean, even now, my kids' immunization records are in there for schools. Their physicals are in there every year. Passports, social security cards are all in there. Like everything that if the school ever calls me and is like, I need X, Y, and Z for this kid, here's the binder, I've got it all. Like I don't ever have to question.
Yes.
Because it's not in 17 places. It's in one place, one location. I don't have to think about it. I know exactly where it is, and everybody knows where my I Love Me binder is. And it has become that like they call it the Holy Grail. Like it's mom's everything, you know? And it's just like our command center is if you have a question, you better go look at the calendar. If you have any questions, you better find the I Love Me book. Like, don't ask me about it unless it's not in those two places.
It's something that really did, I mean, for you, I can say, and for me, I can say like, it really did help the transition because it was just like that one thing. Mm-hmm. It was just the thing that, you know, the kids didn't need to go look in it, at least for me at that time. So it's for Eric and I, like, if we needed any kind of information, we knew exactly where it was. We didn't have to stress about it. And so that just made that part of the transitions in our life during that time so much more easy and less stressful than having to sift through all the emails or paperwork or whatever it was. And so I'm so grateful that I was able, it took time to set it up, but it was worth it in the end, because it was already done, and it helped longer than it took to set up, you know? So But with that, I do want to say through other transitions, not just Germany, like something that has helped me along the way has been to do my research and with whatever it is. Like I researched Germany. I researched about the school system. I was homeschooling at the time. And so I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to homeschool in Germany? And so
Mhm.
doing your research on what you're getting yourself into, or maybe not as a military spouse, getting yourself into what you guys are falling into, um, I think really helps me personally because I know what to expect.
Mhm.
When I do that research, I mean, moving to Colorado, even, I am from Hawaii, guys, like a small, tiny island. Weather is mild, like beautiful year round. I don't have any wildlife other than like we have like wild pigs and we have like a one Hawaiian like brown tree snake or something that's not poisonous. And then I'm coming into the continental US where in the South there are snakes that want to kill you.
Yeah.
There's spiders that want to kill you. Coming into Colorado, you have mountain lion and you have moose that are mean and um all the other things that like I didn't know about. So I did my research as simple as going down to like Googling and reading about wildlife. I am not kidding you. But I felt more educated and I felt like I knew what to expect. Another one about driving in the snow. I don't have snow in Hawaii.
I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't even think
That that was a
about that.
whole new beast that was like I was terrified the first time. I didn't even drive in snow. So we moved to Colorado. North Carolina didn't get too much snow. Moving to Colorado, we moved in March. And so March is probably one of the heaviest weather systems that come in Colorado. And Eric went out for like a week to a ranch to go train and up in the mountains. For we used to live in Colorado Springs, and where he went was out in Lake George, and
Mhm.
there was a ranch out there. And first time that I drove that far, I had like Olivia. She was what 3 months old, and on my way home, it was starting to snow, and nothing was sticking on the ground yet. It was like maybe a little light like snowfall, but I was terrified because I was like, I don't even know how to drive in this. Like, what do I do? And well, my first thing, going back to last week, I call my mom. I call my mom, and because she was my support, and she's like, just take it slow, and she talked me through it until I got home. It was like an hour and a half, hour 45-minute drive that I was like literally like numb and having a panic attack because I didn't know. I mean, and I got home, it was fine. Obviously, like living here now and driving in snow, like that was nothing, obviously.
Right.
That was nothing. But it was my first time. And like
Mhm.
after that, I talked to Eric. He's from New England. He's from Connecticut originally. That snow is heavy, it's wet, it's
Mhm.
a lot. And so he taught me how, and I educated myself. So I did my research, and so when I have done that in those transition periods, it had helped me have a smoother transition into that lifestyle that I'll be living or place I'll be going or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think that same thing applies when like any transition. Like even just the transition from um active duty to veteran status, like right, that leaving of the military. I did research to find veteran groups, veteran spouses groups. Like I understand that at the time when we first got out, I was living in Colorado, so yes, my community is still there. It's not going anywhere, but that doesn't mean our our differences will happen. Like, I'm not gonna have to worry about my husband leaving. I gotta figure out how to deal with all the repercussions now. Like, I need a different support system than I had when active. We're facing different difficulties. So I had a lot of time to research different Facebook groups and different communities, different resources that are available for veterans and their families. And so that was something that I really, really paid attention to in that transition of that sort of life, right? And then going from Colorado to Chicago, still veteran, I had to learn a whole new thought process. Like, I had to find new friends. I had to learn new concepts. Where are those organizations at? What kind of support is out there for my veteran? And it was a lot of like my veteran, right? Looking at my spouse and going, how can I support him in this transition? Which in turn gave me resources. But it was still the idea that I had to do the research. I had to look ahead for what I could. Like you said, going to Germany, I got Germany tour books and I still think I have them. Oh, they're not here. They're on my other side. But I literally got like Germany tour books, like, want to see the coolest places in Germany? And I was like, sure do. But it was more of like, I just needed to learn about the area, like learning about what was going on. And so I think educating is going to be something that is huge when you're going through any transition. You can educate to the best of your abilities, but like even the transition of Chris coming home, I can only educate myself so far. Some of it's going to be a lot of learning. Like, it's just going to be learning in the midst of it. So going back to the beginning of flexibility is huge. Giving yourself grace and understanding that, you know what, I'm doing what I can with what I got. Like, right. I'm going to educate to the best of my abilities. I'm going to control what I can control. And then the rest is being left up to God and everybody else. Like, I can't do everything. So being flexible yet graceful and understanding that it's all going to work out. You're not being handed something that is beyond your abilities. You might not have ever faced this, and it might seem massive, but you will get through it. You'll be able to come to the other side and go, okay, look what I learned. Now we know how to fix our binder to be more conducive. We can do whatever and make it all work.
And don't forget that transitions they're going to stretch you, they're going to challenge you, and all of those things make you grow and a better person. And people, I learned from them, and I became stronger for it. And so, like we've talked about in the past, challenges don't always seem like joy, but you are definitely going to find joy when you come out of it. And it's just, I sometimes, like, those biggest, hardest transitions, I look back and go, my gosh, that sucked. But man, look where we are now. Look,
right.
And look, I mean, I never thought that I would have wanted to go back to North Carolina. That was a hard transition, like leaving Colorado. Once we got there, I was like, okay, we're here. Like, the flexibility part, like, kind of started. But I was dragging my heels at first.
Mm-hmm.
And once I allowed myself that flexibility, and I allowed to look at like the silver lining, like, I would go back in a heartbeat. I love North Carolina. North Carolina is awesome. We had the best time there. So we grew, and we became stronger for it, and we grew together. And it was just sometimes just allowing yourself that space to let that process happen is so powerful.
Yeah. And I feel like I hear so many little tidbits of other episodes that we've mentioned, things of sometimes you got to grow through it and you're going to appreciate it on the other side, and flexibility and grace and the tough places are sometimes the best places, where that's where you're going to want to go back. I mean, Germany was a tough one, and I would go back in a heartbeat. You know, everything is given to you for a reason. You're growing, you're going, you can handle it. This is not for the faint of heart. This lifestyle that we choose and we carry is not for the faint of heart, but you are capable. I promise. We've all made it through with the right support, the right things in place, and we hope that this can be one of those tools and resources to help you feel encouraged and strong enough and know the how-tos and the things that you can get through these transitions of any capacity. How do we make these things so much easier? Understanding, like we said, everything from massive things like PCSing and deployments to bringing a baby home or bringing a kid into your house, or small minor things to big things. Take these tips and tricks, bring them into your life, understand that, even the flexibility of trying to go on vacation with your own family, that's a transition. You're transitioning. Even for 4 days, you're going to be transitioning from your home to a hotel. How do you keep your sanity? How do we get through this and find the silver lining and find joy in this moment? And we're going to be talking about being in the moment next week. And I feel like it's right in line with this, is being in the moment for next week of removing the stressors, right? And being excited for being in the moment. How do we find that silver lining and being there for it? But I hope that this week can be a tool for all of us to learn something new. And how do we get through transitions with grace and ease so that we can, like I said, surf the wave and not be taken into the undertow and just spit out at the end of it all. Like, truly, I want that for you to be able to surf the wave, find the joy, and walk away with true excitement over it. So be on the lookout for next week as we're talking be in the moment and being present. Because we've talked goals and success and all those things, whereas February is going to be talking all over the anticipation of happiness. So we got to get from goals to happiness, and how do we do that? And so we're really excited for next week of being in the moment and talking over that. So we will talk to you guys next week, and we'll see you then.